In just 42 seconds, one of Hollywood's most respected actors went from sitting calmly on a talk show couch to standing up, ripping off his microphone, and telling the host exactly where he could shove his questions. What started as a simple conversation about movies turned into a full-blown explosion that had the entire studio gasping, cameras shaking, and Michael Strahan looking like he'd just been hit by a truck. This wasn't just another celebrity disagreement. This was a complete meltdown that nobody saw coming. Before we get into this insane story, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the drama that happens when the cameras are still rolling. You're not going to want to miss what happens next in this industry. Last night's episode of Michael Strahan's show was supposed to be a celebration. Samuel L. Jackson was there to talk about his latest film, his incredible career spanning decades, and maybe share some funny stories from movie sets. The audience was pumped, the energy in the studio was high, and Jackson walked out with his usual cool confidence, wearing a sharp black suit and his signature style. He sat down, shook Strahan's hand, and everything seemed normal. For about 3 minutes, Strahan started off friendly enough, asking Jackson about his new movie, talking about the action scenes, the cast, all the usual stuff you'd expect. Jackson answered with that smooth voice everyone knows, cracking a couple of jokes, getting some laughs from the crowd. He talked about working with the director, about some of the stunts he did himself even at his age, and people were loving it. The audience was clapping, Strahan was nodding along, and it looked like this was going to be just another good interview. But then Strahan decided to switch gears. "So, Sam," Strahan said, leaning back in his chair with this weird smirk on his face, "I gotta ask you something that people have been talking about online." Jackson's face changed just a little bit. Not much, but enough. "What's that?" he asked. His voice still calm, but you could hear something different in it. Strahan chuckled like he was about to drop some big revelation. "There's been a lot of chatter about you taking roles that maybe should go to younger actors, you know? Like some people are saying you're kind of blocking opportunities for the next generation. What do you say to that?" The studio went quiet. Like, dead quiet. You could feel the tension jump through the screen. Jackson stared at Strahan for a good 5 seconds without saying anything. His jaw tightened just a little. "Excuse me?" Jackson finally said, his voice low. "What the hell kind of question is that?" Strahan put his hands up like he was innocent. "Hey, I'm just asking what people are wondering. You know, you've been in the game a long time. You're still taking all these big roles. Some folks think maybe it's time to step aside. Let some new faces shine. That's all." Jackson leaned forward in his seat. "First of all, don't call me Sam. We're not friends like that. It's Samuel. Second, who exactly is saying this? What people? Because it sounds like you're the one saying it and you're just trying to hide behind some made-up internet trolls." The audience started murmuring. A few people even gasped. This was not going the way anyone expected. Strahan's smile got smaller, but he tried to keep playing it cool. "Come on now, Samuel. I'm not trying to attack you here. I'm just bringing up what's being discussed. You're a legend. Everybody knows that. But you have to admit, you're not getting any younger. And there are a lot of talented young actors out there who..." "Who what?" Jackson cut him off, his voice getting sharper. "Who deserve it more than me? Is that what you're trying to say? Because I've earned every single role I've ever gotten. I've put in the work, I've paid my dues, I've been doing this since before most of these young actors were even born. You think I should just disappear because some kid wants my spot?" Strahan shifted in his seat, and you could see he was getting uncomfortable, but instead of backing down, he doubled down. "I'm not saying you should disappear. I'm saying maybe you're being a little selfish. Like, you've had your time in the spotlight. Maybe it's someone else's turn." That's when Jackson's whole demeanor changed. He sat up straight, his eyes locked on Strahan like a laser beam. "Selfish? You want to talk about selfish? Let me tell you something about selfish, Michael. Selfish is inviting someone on your show to promote their work and then ambushing them with disrespectful nonsense. Selfish is pretending you're asking a legitimate question when really you're just trying to create drama for your ratings. That's what's selfish." The audience started reacting more loudly now. Some people were clapping, others were just shocked. Strahan tried to laugh it off, but you could see the panic starting to creep into his face. Whoa, Samuel. I think you're taking this the wrong way. I'm not trying to ambush you. This is a conversation." "This is not a conversation," Jackson shot back. "A conversation is when two people talk with respect. What you're doing is trying to tear me down on television. And for what? To make yourself look edgy? To get people talking about your show? That's weak, man. That's really weak. Strahan's face was getting red now. You know what, Samuel? Maybe you're just sensitive because you know there's some truth to it. Maybe you are holding on too tight. Maybe you are scared of becoming irrelevant. The studio gasped again, louder this time. Jackson stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. He pointed his finger right at Strahan. Irrelevant? You want to talk about irrelevant? I've been making great films for 40 years. I've worked with the best directors in the world. I've created characters that people will remember forever. What have you done besides smile at a camera and read off a teleprompter? You're a football player who got lucky with a TV gig, and now you think you can sit here and judge my career? Get the hell out of here with that. Strahan stood up too, his face completely red now, his hands gesturing wildly. Oh, so now you're going to disrespect what I do? I've worked hard to build this show. I've interviewed hundreds of people. I don't need to justify myself to you. No, you're right. You don't need to justify yourself to me, Jackson said, his voice cold. But you did need to show me some basic respect, and you failed. You invited me here under false pretenses. You acted like this was going to be a normal interview, and then you hit me with this disrespectful garbage. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's just you being a coward. The whole studio was in chaos now. People in the audience were standing up. Some were booing, others were cheering. The producers off to the side were frantically waving their hands, trying to figure out what to do. Strahan looked like he wanted to explode. A coward? I'm a coward. I'm the one who had the guts to ask you the tough questions that nobody else will ask. Jackson laughed. But it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was the kind of laugh that makes you nervous. Tough questions? You think that was tough? That was stupid. That was insulting. You know what a tough question would be? Asking me about my craft, about my process, about the choices I make as an actor. But you don't know how to ask those questions because you don't actually care about the art. You just care about creating moments that'll go viral. Well, congratulations, Michael. You got your moment. I hope it was worth it. Strahan pointed at Jackson, his hand shaking a little. You can't talk to me like that on my show. This is my show. You're a guest here. I was a guest here, Jackson corrected him. Past tense. Because I'm done. I'm not sitting here and letting you disrespect me for another second. He reached down and grabbed the little microphone clipped to his jacket. He yanked it off so hard the wire made a snapping sound. He tossed it onto the coffee table between them, and it bounced once before landing on the floor. You know what your problem is, Michael, Jackson said, his voice cutting through all the noise. Your problem is, you forgot where you came from. You forgot what it's like to work for something, to earn something. You got famous playing a game, and then they gave you a TV show, and now you think you're some kind of authority on who deserves what. You're not. You're just a guy who got lucky, and instead of using that luck to lift people up, you're trying to tear them down. That's sad, man. That's really sad. Strahan's mouth was hanging open. He looked completely shocked. Are you serious right now? You're going to storm off like a child just because I asked you one tough question? Jackson started walking toward the exit, but he stopped and turned back around. It wasn't a tough question. It was a dumb question, and I'm not storming off like a child. I'm leaving because I have self-respect, and I'm not going to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly doesn't have any respect for what I've accomplished. You want to talk about the next generation? The next generation is watching this right now, and you know what they're learning? They're learning that you can have all the talent in the world, work your entire life, and some guy with a microphone will still try to tell you you're not good enough. That's the lesson you're teaching. So yeah, I'm out. Strahan tried one more time, his voice getting louder. So you're just going to walk away? You're going to quit? Jackson stopped at the edge of the stage. He looked back one more time, and his face was completely serious. I'm not quitting anything. I'm just done wasting my time with you. There's a difference. Good luck with your show, Michael. You're going to need it. And then he was gone. He walked straight off the stage, past all the cameras, past the stunned crew members, and disappeared through the exit. The audience was going absolutely crazy. Half of them were cheering for Jackson. The other half were just in complete shock. Strahan stood there on the stage, frozen, not knowing what to do. His mouth was moving, but no words were coming out. But let's back up a second. Because to really understand how this whole thing exploded so badly, you need to know what led up to that main question. When Jackson first sat down, everything seemed totally normal. They did the usual opening banter, some jokes about Jackson's iconic roles, some talk about his favorite movies he's been in. Strahan asked him about working with different directors, and Jackson gave these great stories about being on set. The energy was good. People were laughing, and Jackson seemed relaxed. Then Strahan brought up Jackson's longevity in Hollywood. At first, it seemed like a compliment. "You've been doing this for so long, and you're still at the top of your game," Strahan said. "How do you keep that energy? How do you stay relevant?" Notice that word, relevant. Jackson picked up on it immediately. "I don't think about staying relevant," he said, his tone changing just slightly. "I think about doing good work. If you focus on the work, everything else takes care of itself." Strahan nodded, but then he pushed further. "Sure, but you've got to admit, Hollywood loves young faces. They're always looking for the next big thing. Does that ever worry you? Do you ever feel like you're competing with guys half your age?" Jackson gave him a look. "Competing? I'm not competing with anyone. I'm doing my thing. If somebody else is doing their thing, that's great. There's room for everybody." "Is there, though?" Strahan asked, and that's when the tone really started to shift. "I mean, there's only so many big roles in big movies. If you're taking them, that means someone else isn't getting them, right?" Jackson didn't answer right away. He just stared at Strahan, and you could see his mind working, trying to figure out where this was going. "What are you getting at, Michael?" Strahan leaned forward with that smirk again. "I'm just saying, you've been doing this a long time. You've made your money, you've won your awards, you've got your legacy. At what point do you step back and let the next generation have their shot?" That's when Jackson's face really changed. "Let them have their shot? Are you kidding me right now? They can have their shot by earning it, just like I did. I didn't have anything handed to me. I worked in theater for years. I struggled. I fought for every opportunity. And now that I've finally got to a place where people want to hire me, where I can choose my projects, you think I should just give that up? For who? For some kid who hasn't put in half the work I have?" The audience started murmuring. This was getting uncomfortable. Strahan must have realized he was losing control of the interview, but instead of pulling back, he went harder. "I'm not saying you didn't earn it," Strahan said, his voice getting defensive. "But come on. You have to see how it looks. You're in your 70s. You're still taking lead roles in action movies. Meanwhile, there are talented black actors in their 30s and 40s who can't get a shot because the industry keeps going back to the same old names. You don't think that's a problem?" And that's when Jackson really lost it. "The same old names? You mean the names that actually make movies successful? The names that audiences want to see? Yeah, I'm one of those names, and I'm not apologizing for it. You know why I keep getting hired? Because I show up, I do the work, I'm professional, and I'm damn good at what I do. If these younger actors want my spot, they can earn it just like I did." Strahan shook his head. "That's such a selfish way to look at it." "Selfish?" Jackson's voice got louder. "You want to know what's selfish? What's selfish is you sitting here, making millions of dollars off a talk show, and trying to lecture me about making room for others. When's the last time you stepped aside for a younger host? When's the last time you gave up your seat so someone else could shine? Never, right? Because that's not how the world works. You don't just give up what you've earned because someone younger comes along. You make them work for it." The tension in the studio was insane at this point. People were shifting in their seats, whispering to each other, and the camera operators didn't even know where to point their cameras anymore. Strahan's producers were definitely freaking out backstage, but the cameras kept rolling. Strahan tried to regain control. Okay, let's calm down for a second. I think we're getting a little heated here." "You're damn right we're getting heated," Jackson said. "Because you disrespected me. You brought me on your show and tried to make me look like some greedy old man who's blocking opportunities. That's not who I am. I've mentored young actors. I've helped people get their start. But I'm not going to apologize for being successful. I'm not going to apologize for being good at what I do." Strahan put his hands up again. "I never asked you to apologize." "Yes, you did," Jackson shot back. "That's exactly what you did. You framed your whole question like I'm doing something wrong by continuing to work. Like I should feel guilty for still being in demand. Well, I don't feel guilty. I feel proud. I worked my entire life to get here, and I'm going to keep working for as long as I want to. Even if it means taking opportunities from others?" That question hung in the air like a bomb. Jackson stared at Strahan with pure fury in his eyes. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about taking opportunities from anyone. The film industry isn't a charity. It's a business. Directors hire me because I make their movies better. Studios want me because I put people in seats. That's how this works. If these younger actors want those opportunities, they need to make themselves undeniable. They need to be so good that directors can't ignore them. That's what I did. Strahan wasn't backing down, though. But you had opportunities that they don't have. The industry was different back then. Different? How? Jackson asked, his voice sharp. You think it was easier? You think I had it easy as a black actor trying to make it in Hollywood in the 80s and 90s? Are you out of your mind? I fought twice as hard for half the recognition. I dealt with racism, with typecasting, with being told I wasn't good enough or I wasn't right for certain roles. I broke down doors that were closed in my face. So don't you dare sit there and tell me I had it easier. The audience was completely split now. Half of them were clapping for Jackson. The other half just looked shocked. Strahan's face was getting redder and redder. I'm not saying you had it easier, Strahan said, his voice rising. I'm saying you're not making it easier for the people coming after you. That's not my job, Jackson yelled. My job is to be the best actor I can be. Their job is to be the best actors they can be. This isn't some relay race where I have to pass the baton. This is a career. This is my life. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let you or anyone else tell me when my time is up. Strahan stood up at this point, clearly frustrated. So you're saying you don't care about the next generation at all? Jackson stood up too, faster than Strahan. Don't twist my words. I care about the next generation. But caring about them doesn't mean I have to sacrifice myself. It doesn't mean I have to walk away from roles I've earned just to make things easier for them. Life doesn't work that way. Success doesn't work that way. You want to help the next generation? Teach them to work hard, to be persistent, to never give up. Don't teach them to wait around for someone to hand them something. That's easy for you to say when you're already at the top, Strahan said. You're damn right I'm at the top, Jackson fired back. Because I climbed there. Nobody carried me. And you know what? I'm going to stay at the top for as long as I can, because that's what winners do. They don't apologize for winning. They don't step aside just because someone thinks it's their turn. You earn your spot, and you keep it until someone better comes along and takes it from you. That's the game. Strahan laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. So it's all about you then? It's all about Samuel L. Jackson staying on top no matter what? It's about respecting the work, Jackson said, his voice cold. Something you clearly don't understand. You think I'm being selfish? I think you're being ignorant. You don't know what it takes to build a career like mine. You had success handed to you because you could catch a football. I had to create my success from nothing. So yeah, forgive me if I'm not interested in giving it all up just because you think I should. That's when things really went off the rails. Strahan, clearly feeling attacked, decided to hit below the belt. You know what, Samuel? Maybe the reason you're so defensive about this is because deep down you know your time is running out. Maybe you're scared that these younger actors are better than you, and you're holding on for dear life because you know once you let go, nobody's going to remember you. The entire studio went silent. Even the people who had been cheering or booing stopped. Everyone just stared at Strahan, shocked that he actually said that. Jackson's face went completely blank for a second. Then he smiled, but it was the scariest smile you've ever seen. Nobody's going to remember me, Jackson said quietly. Nobody's going to remember me. I'm in some of the biggest movies ever made. I'm in the Marvel Universe. I'm in Star Wars. I'm in Pulp Fiction, one of the greatest films of all time. I've worked with Spielberg, Tarantino, Spike Lee. I've got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. People quote my lines every single day. And you think nobody's going to remember me? He took a step closer to Strahan. Let me tell you something, Michael. 20 years from now, people are still going to be watching my movies. They're still going to be quoting my lines. They're still going to know who Samuel L. Jackson is. Can you say the same about yourself? Will anyone remember this show? Will anyone care about your interviews? Or will you just be that guy who used to play football? Strahan's jaw clenched. At least I'm not so insecure that I have to keep working into my 70s to prove I'm still relevant. Insecure? Jackson laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not insecure. I'm confident. That's the difference between us. I know what I bring to the table. I know my worth. You're the one who's insecure. You're so insecure that you have to try to tear down your guests to make yourself feel important. That's pathetic. Get out, Strahan said suddenly. Jackson tilted his head. What? I said get out, Strahan repeated, louder this time. This is my show. If you're going to disrespect me like this, you can leave. Jackson laughed again, that same scary laugh. Disrespect you? You started this, Michael. You brought me here to ambush me with your little agenda, and now you're mad because I didn't just sit here and take it. That's rich. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm telling you to leave, Strahan said, his voice shaking with anger. Security! The audience gasped. Some people started yelling. Jackson just shook his head slowly. You don't need to call security, Jackson said calmly. I'm already leaving. I wouldn't stay on this joke of a show for another second if you paid me. That's when he ripped off his microphone and tossed it on the table. The sound it made when it hit was so loud everyone jumped a little. You made a big mistake today, Michael, Jackson said as he started walking toward the exit. You thought you could use me to boost your ratings, to make yourself look tough. But all you did was show everyone who you really are. You're not a journalist. You're not even a good host. You're just a bully with a camera. Strahan yelled after him, I don't need this from you. There are 100 actors who would love to be on this show. Jackson turned around one last time, right at the edge of the stage. Then call them, he said simply, because you're never getting me back here again. Good luck explaining this mess to your producers. Good luck explaining it to your audience. And good luck living with yourself after what you just did. And with that, Samuel L. Jackson walked off the stage. He didn't run. He didn't storm off in a rage. He just walked calmly, with his head held high, like he was walking off a movie set. After nailing a perfect scene, the studio erupted into chaos behind him. The audience was standing, some booing Strahan, others trying to figure out what just happened. Strahan stood there alone on the stage, his face red, his fists clenched, looking like he just got knocked out in front of millions of people. The cameras kept rolling for a few more seconds, capturing Strahan's face as he realized what he'd done. Then someone finally yelled, "Cut!" and the feeds went dark. But the damage was already done. One of Hollywood's biggest legends had just walked off a talk show in the middle of a live taping, and it was all because the host thought he could score easy points by questioning Jackson's right to keep working. As Jackson disappeared through the exit doors, you could hear his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Somewhere backstage, people were probably frantically trying to figure out how to save the show, how to explain what just happened, how to do damage control. But Jackson wasn't thinking about any of that. He'd said what he needed to say, he'd stood up for himself, and now he was done. The last thing anyone in that studio heard was the sound of the exit door slamming shut, and then Samuel L. Jackson was gone, leaving behind one of the most explosive talk show moments in television history.